Have you ever heard of a crime so audacious, so perfectly executed, that the culprit simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind a legend that still baffles investigators and fascinates the public over half a century later? Today, we're diving into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history, the case of D.B. Cooper. It all started on a cold, rainy afternoon, the day before Thanksgiving, November 24, 1971. A man, who appeared to be in his mid-40s, walked up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter at Portland International Airport. He was dressed in a dark business suit, a crisp white shirt, and a black tie. He bought a one-way ticket to Seattle, a short 30-minute flight. He gave his name as Dan Cooper. Little did anyone know, this unassuming passenger was about to pull off the most daring skyjacking the world had ever seen. Once aboard the Boeing 727, Flight 305, Cooper took his seat, 18C, in the rear of the plane. He lit a cigarette and ordered a bourbon and soda. The flight was only about a third full, with 36 passengers and 6 crew members. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper calmly handed a note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. Thinking it was just another passenger's phone number, she initially slipped it into her pocket without looking. But Cooper leaned closer and said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Florence retrieved the note. Written in neat, all-caps letters, it stated he had a bomb in his briefcase. He then opened the briefcase just enough for her to see a mess of red-colored sticks, wires, and a large cylindrical battery. He wasn't joking. His demands were simple and direct. He wanted $200,000 in marked $20 bills. For parachutes, to primary and to reserve, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane up. On arrival, the flight attendant immediately informed the cockpit. The captain, William Scott, contacted Seattle-Tacoma International Airport Air Traffic Control, who in turn alerted local and federal authorities. The airline's president, Donald Nyrop, made the decision to cooperate fully. The safety of the passengers was the top priority. While the authorities on the ground scrambled to meet Cooper's demands, the other passengers on the plane were completely unaware of the drama unfolding. They were simply told that their landing in Seattle would be delayed due to a minor mechanical issue. For nearly 2 hours, the Boeing 727 circled Puget Sound. This gave the FBI time to gather the ransom money, 10,000 individual $20 bills, and procure the parachutes from a local skydiving school. Once everything was ready, the plane landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. The shades of the cabin windows were drawn to prevent police snipers from getting a clear shot. Once on the ground, Cooper exchanged the 36 passengers for the money and parachutes. He had the money in a heavy knapsack, and the parachutes delivered by a single airline employee. He kept a few crew members on board: Captain Scott, First Officer Radachak, Flight Engineer Anderson, and Flight Attendant Tina Mucklow. While the plane was being refueled, Cooper outlined the next phase of his plan to the crew in the cockpit. He wanted them to fly towards Mexico City, but with a very specific and very strange set of instructions. They were to fly at a low altitude of 10,000 feet, at a slow airspeed of just under 200 knots. Crucially, he demanded that the landing gear remain down and the wing flaps be lowered to 15 degrees. And most importantly, he wanted the rear air stair of the Boeing 727, the retractable staircase at the tail of the plane, to be left open. The pilots were hesitant. Flying with the rear air stair open was dangerous and unprecedented. They explained that it wasn't safe, but Cooper was insistent. He knew exactly what he was doing. His knowledge of the aircraft's capabilities was surprisingly detailed, leading investigators to believe he might have had a background in aviation or the military. Around 7:40 p.m., Flight 305 took off again from Seattle, heading south into the dark, stormy night. 2 F-106 fighter jets from a nearby Air Force base were scrambled to tail the airliner, but they had to keep their distance to avoid being seen. Just after 8 p.m., somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, a warning light flashed in the cockpit, indicating that the aft air stair had been activated. The crew tried to speak with Cooper over the intercom, but there was no response. The pressure in the cabin changed. D.B. Cooper, with $200,000 strapped to his body, had lowered the rear stairs and leaped out of the plane into a freezing, windswept wilderness below. He had vanished into the night. The plane eventually landed safely in Reno around 10:15 p.m. Law enforcement swarmed the aircraft, only to find it empty, save for the remaining crew. Cooper had left behind his black clip-on tie, 2 of the 4 parachutes, and the stub of his cigarette. This began one of the most extensive and expensive manhunts in U.S. history, codenamed Hijacked, for Northwest hijacking. The FBI immediately launched a massive search operation. They tried to calculate his probable landing zone based on the flight path, weather conditions, and parachute drift. The search area was a rugged, heavily forested, mountainous region in southwestern Washington state. For weeks, ground troops and helicopters scoured the terrain, but found nothing. No Cooper, no parachute, no money. It was as if he had been swallowed by the forest. 4 years, the case went cold. The FBI investigated over 1,000 potential suspects, but could never definitively identify the man who called himself Dan Cooper. The media, through a miscommunication, had mistakenly started calling him D.B. Cooper, and the name stuck, adding to his mythic status. Was he an experienced paratrooper? A disgruntled airline employee? Or just an ordinary man who planned the perfect crime? Then, in 1980, 9 years after the hijacking, a breakthrough seemed to arrive. A young boy named Brian Ingram was digging a fire pit on a sandy bank of the Columbia River, at a place called Bar. About 6 miles from the city of Vancouver, Washington, his hands uncovered 3 bundles of decaying cash. He had found nearly $5,800. When his family turned the money over to the FBI, they confirmed it was part of D.B. Cooper's ransom. The serial numbers matched. This discovery electrified the public and the investigation. But it also deepened the mystery. The money was found far from the original search zone. How did it get there? Did Cooper lose some of the money during his jump? Did he land in the river and drown? Or did he bury it, intending to come back for it later? Extensive searches of the Bar area turned up no other clues. No body, no parachute, nothing. The trail went cold once again. Over the decades, dozens of men have been named as suspects. Some have even confessed. There was Richard McCoy Jr., a Vietnam vet who pulled off a similar copycat hijacking just a few months later. There was Dwayne Weber, who made a deathbed confession to his wife. And there was Kenneth Christensen, a former paratrooper and airline purser. But for every suspect, there was a lack of hard evidence. Fingerprints and DNA samples collected from the plane didn't match any of them. The tie Cooper left behind yielded some DNA in the 2000s, but it hasn't matched anyone in any criminal database. In 2016, after 45 years of dead ends, the FBI officially closed the active investigation into the D.B. Cooper case. They concluded that they had exhausted all credible leads. But the legend lives on. D.B. Cooper became a folk hero to some, a symbol of rebellion against the system, a ghost who beat the odds and got away. He inspired songs, books, movies, and even an annual festival in the small Washington town of Ariel, near the suspected jump zone. So what really happened to D.B. Cooper? Did he survive the perilous jump in the middle of a storm, at night, into a dense forest? If so, did he successfully integrate back into society with his newfound wealth, living out his days in anonymity? Or did he, as the FBI largely believes, perish in the wilderness, his remains and the rest of the money lost forever to the elements? We may never know the truth. The man known as D.B. Cooper remains a phantom, his true identity, and his ultimate fate shrouded in mystery. He is the ghost who fell from the sky, leaving behind nothing but an enduring question mark. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. See you in the next video.